I would describe Stephen as a monster. He was never where he was supposed to be. He was always missing. There was a time when we were to go away on a holiday, one of the very few times we would go away on the holiday. He was down the local creek chasing lizards. Everybody else was ready to go. We had to go and look for him. If you took him out in the bush, the hardest job for the whole trip would be to keep an eye on Stephen. The only successful way, and I never ever tried it, but the most successful way would have been to tie him to the truck. But on the other hand, it was marvellous to have somebody at that size, especially your own son, to sort of go on a field trip with you.
Growing up at the reptile park is something that is really hard to describe, in that my whole life, whether I was waking up in the morning going to school or it was the weekend and I had to clean out crocodile enclosures, I was surrounded by wildlife. My whole aim as a kid was to find animals, and particularly venomous snakes and lizards, so I could show my dad, and so my whole life I just had to go out there and make Dad proud. Meanwhile, he's out looking for me, and so the opposite effect was happening. Oh, he wasn't all that proud. He was there, come on, we're ready to go, and we can't find you, so yeah, he had his hands full, I think.
He's always been very, very active, on the verge of being hyperactive, really, very much so. If he went missing, you could always look up a tree, there he'd be. I never used to stop him. I got to the stage where, from the age of 2 years old, he would never be on the ground, he'd be up somewhere. It was just useless. You had to let him go his way. And he's always been the same, and he always will be. When we'd be travelling to and fro school, if he saw a reptile on the road, we always had to stop and investigate what it was, whether we were running late or early or whatever. One particular instance, I have stopped the car and said, well, get out and do it, and left him there. My husband decided to buy Stephen a snake for his birthday. He was 6 years old, and he got a python. It was about 12 foot long. He loved this python.
My dad is my hero, my legend, my icon, and also my mentor. And he was kind of ahead of his time with wildlife. He was at the cutting edge of animal husbandry and understanding the wilderness and all of the wildlife in it.
We decided that we'd keep a couple of reptiles as pets because we were always out fishing, and we were always running into tiger snakes and black snakes and brown snakes and things. So we decided, rather than hurt them, that we'd keep them as pets. So we kept a couple as pets, and then it just grew from there. We thought that if we could make some type of a living out of an animal park, then Queensland's climate was quite good for that. Building materials at that time were extremely difficult to get, and the first couple of years we actually lived in a caravan because we couldn't build a house.
It was never easy. It was something we'd never done before. We'd come from Melbourne working as plumbers up to opening a park of animals.
My mum is just the most beautiful person on the face of the earth. You know, I was born on my mum's birthday, and so every time my birthday comes around, I just get this overwhelming warmth, just engulfs my entire body. All of her life, she has tried to rehabilitate orphan animals like orphan joey kangaroos, koalas, wombats, snakes, and raise 3 kids of her own.
We started off with a very small collection. We had a few snakes, we had a few lizards, and I think it took us probably at that time a couple of years before we managed to get a couple of crocodiles. Stephen would have gone crocodile catching with us extremely early in the piece, actually, when we were catching freshwater crocodiles. This would have been in the early 70s, and the same thing applied, that it was, although he was only a fairly young lad, it was extremely difficult to keep him in the boat so that you could keep your eye on him, because if we happened to see a croc, he would want to be the first one out to grab it.
I think I was 9 years old when I had my first jump on a freshie, and that was a pretty wild experience. You know, up the front of the boat, I've got the spotlight, and you can imagine at 9 years of age, I was keen as mustard. And I was accustomed to spotlighting the crocs, and I'd put the spotty down, he'd be driving, and he'd go in and jump them. But something changed this night, and he had me up the front, and he's righto, son, you can get him.
Okay, up the front, and don't worry about the tree, Stephen.
We were going up the river and we saw this crocodile close to the bank.
There's one, Dad, there's one!
Keep your eye on it, son.
And I trusted Stephen that he knew what size crocodile it was, which was rather silly on my part. I should have known better.
We're getting closer and closer until I can see his eyes right in front. Whoa! Speared straight down, grabbed him by the scruff of the neck. I was overwhelmed, and I didn't realise how large it was.
And then I realised that this croc is nearly the same size as Stephen. He's gradually going underwater with the crocodile. So I grabbed him and the croc and threw them both in the boat.
Then I felt the strength of my dad's arm come underneath both of us and flip us both into the boat, and he just pinned us down. You're all right, lad, you're all right. And sure enough, I was okay, and by crikey, that was the proudest moment of my entire life. I copped a little bit of flack at school, you know, at primary school, because I wasn't into push bikes and then into motorbikes or skateboards. And so at lunchtime or morning tea, I'd be out there looking at the birds, trying to find little lizards and, you know, getting up close to them and feeding them grasshoppers. And I guess after a period of time, the other kids seemed to warm up to it and they got involved. Wildlife has always been my passion. It was my backyard. In 1985, Dad and I, we felt that action speaks louder than words, and we've always loved our crocodiles, and we felt that the conflict between crocodiles and man is something that we could help with. And so Dad joined up with the East Coast Crocodile Management Program, and together away we went, trying to help the crocodiles by removing them from the area before there was that conflict or a potential danger of someone getting bitten.
That was probably the most exciting time at the park, actually, because we had to catch what they classified then as nuisance or road crocodiles. And we were contracted to National Parks and Wildlife to catch these crocodiles. It was an extremely exciting time. He seemed to have a reasonably good knack of not only finding the crocodiles but also catching them.
I've found that the best way to catch a crocodile is to treat it as a one-on-one situation. So I just focus on that crocodile so hard that I am unaware of anything around me. I won't eat. I'll stay on that river.